USC women basketball.
Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Matt Zemek with USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay, and she's at the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab, your one-stop shop. Making it your daily read, your go-to. You know, this your aircraft carrier, right? JuJu Watkins, the aircraft carrier, when she's on the court. Well, the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab, the aircraft carrier of women's basketball sites. You get the film breakdowns, you get the analysis, you get the analytics, you get stats, you get information, all sorts of goodies straight from Cece Clay. So we promised you a standalone North Carolina State preview. Here it is. So Cece, we're going to get into some of the details, but just start with your overview of NC State, which, beat Tennessee in a thriller earlier this week.
Yeah, first of all, before we go there, thank you for the introduction. You show me mad love all the time, so I appreciate that. And second of all, got to give a shout out and congratulations to JuJu Watkins, who again, it was just announced this morning that she is now an investor of the new Boston FC NWSL team, and she is the first NCAA college athlete to be an investor at the pro level. So she already invested in Unrivaled, the women's 3-on-3 league, and now she's investing in this. So shout out to her team. Shout out to her because she is showing people how to do it the right way to create generational wealth and use her money that's going to best help her community, and her family. So I just, I'm so proud of her, and just shout out to JuJu for doing things that we haven't seen before. So yeah. Okay. So yeah. On with
the you said helping everyone in her community, everyone in her circle, and also growing women's sports. Like she's
growing
also
women's
doing
sports.
Like just forward thinking. It's awesome to see. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, and just a testament of how to use NIL the right way. So just had to throw that in there. So yeah, let's talk about North Carolina State, USC on Sunday. You have the 9th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack going up against the 18th ranked USC Trojans, and it's going to be an interesting game. And I want to first start by saying, yes, I did watch that Tennessee and North Carolina State game, and to break that game down, it was all gas, no brakes. And Tennessee, they use their hockey style substitution to keep the pressure on the teams that they play. And they do that so they won't have to play defense, because there is literally no defense played by that team, and the efficiencies that they have don't really show unless you're an analyst watching the game and understanding, because they're making so many offensive moves in and out of the game. And so that directly affected North Carolina State in the beginning. North Carolina State, their pace of play was sped up because of that. They're not that type of team. They have maybe 6 players that they can use that will help their team. So they're like a half court set team, and they want to play inside out with their center Trigger, who's 6'6", and Camille Pierre, who came over from Vanderbilt and is just a beast. She's probably one of the best players in that position in the NCAA. So that's their game plan, to play inside and out. They don't like to run, and defensively, their defensive rating is a 98.8, which is in the 39th percentile. So I don't know if that was because of the Tennessee game, but normally Sanaya Rivers from last year, that was a defensive threat. This year, they're not as strong defensively as they have been in the past. So that's an overview. Camille Pierre, she's averaging 21 points a game. Trigger is averaging 19 points a game. And then they have Zamaya Jones, who is their freshman guard. And let me see. Sorry, let me just pull up my paperwork so I can be accurate about this. Zoe Brooks, she's a sophomore, and she averages 13 points a game. Zamaya Jones averages 18 points a game. So they got 13, 19, 21, and 18. And then it's nothing after that. Their bench averages 5 points a game currently. And so you know, we can beat them with our depth if we come to play.
So I think a natural point of curiosity and also comparison and maybe contrast that a lot of women's basketball fans are going to draw here. You mentioned Tennessee with the hockey style substitutions. Now, USC didn't do hockey style substitutions, but it did go 11 deep in the game against New Mexico State. Now, a lot of that was just making sure players got some reps in the first game. But people will say, well, Tennessee was rotating bodies in and out. USC probably going to try and lean on its depth a little bit more. But the way Tennessee deploys its bodies, its personnel, is going to be different from how USC deploys its lineup. Like what commonalities can you derive from that, and what are the salient differences in
I'll,
that particular conversation?
we could talk about the differences because there's stark differences. Like I said, Tennessee, um, they don't play defense whatsoever. Their main thing is to overpower teams with their offense and wear them down with the way they sub in, right? If they feel like if they can wear a team down, they'll overpower you offensively. The difference between Tennessee and USC is, USC has depth, but they play defense. You know what I mean? So they're more strategical with the way they game plan towards teams, and they're just not gonna, move up and down the court just to be moving up and down the court. They're if they have to slow it down offensively, they will. They're gonna pick and choose when they take their transition points. They're gonna pick and choose when they set up half court offense. Whereas Tennessee doesn't do that. They're just running gun sub, running gun sub. And if the other team scores, they're like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just beat you down the court the next time down. So it's interesting. The other difference that I see that's really going to be interesting to see is the front courts, right? Because you have Camille Pierre and Tilda Trigger for North Carolina State. Like I said, 6'6", averages 19 points a game, and then Camille Pierre averages 21 points a game. So you have a very veteran type of front court going up against a very young front court. And so the key is, how are we going to contain that? And my guess is we're going to play zone.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem that, USC, this USC team, the way it's constructed, it has to lean on its defense to win games. And when we remind everyone, this game's going to be in Charlotte. Now, so it's not on the North Carolina State campus in Raleigh. It's technically a neutral site, but obviously that's going to be an NC State building. But it might still feel like a tournament style environment being in Charlotte, and USC's likely going to need to lean on its defense. Let's just draw the comparison. Not that this USC team is anything like previous USC teams, okay, but just in terms of the context, that opener in Paris, France last season against Ole Miss, the offense struggled, and it just figures that playing in a different environment, far away from home, you don't have the convenient shooting backdrop of the Galen Center. It just figures that offense is going to more naturally be difficult to attain, and that USC's fortress, the foundation of a winning performance, is going to be on defense. So you think that zone is probably the answer? Let me ask you. I didn't ask you this in our NC or New Mexico State review show. Any thought about using not necessarily a pure zone, but box and one, and maybe like Kennedy Smith is your defender? Uh, you don't think
I don't see that.
Beth Burns might go in that direction, just pure zone?
Not for this game. She doesn't need to. You know what I mean? But I don't know what team that unless not even against Notre Dame. I just, because our guard play will step up. You know what I mean? If not, they'll just go to a zone to contain. The whole purpose of the zone is to contain the paint. You know what I mean? And so I think by containing the paint, by playing the zone, we're going to try and take Camille Pierre and Trigger out of the game. If anything, we might let Camille Pierre get her points, let her get her 21 points and contain everybody else. So it's going to be fun to watch and interesting to see how that comes to fruition. But I would imagine you're going to see some man and you're going to see some zone. They're going to change it up to throw North Carolina State off guard because Tennessee didn't play zone at all. So I don't think North Carolina State has even seen a zone.
Let's talk just about zone specifically. Should we fully expect 2-3 or maybe perhaps a 1-3-1? And maybe you can walk people through the differences between what different zone alignments try to achieve.
I don't think well, a 1-3-1 is specifically guard oriented, so you're trying to focus on the guards, especially stop the ball pressure up top. A 2-3 is more packing it in the paint, and so I think that we're going to see more of the 2-3 zone because of the post that they have. We want to contain the paint by committee. So if we play a 1-3-1, that's going out towards the wings to protect the perimeter a little bit more than the paint. To me, North Carolina State doesn't have a perimeter. They don't have a perimeter presence on their team. They're shooting like 22% from 3-point land. Most of their shots are coming from the mid range, where they're shooting 40, 45%, 42%, and then right around the rim. So that's where most of their shots are coming from. Again, post play and then the mid range, and that mid range is mostly coming from Zoe Brooks, who's the returning guard from last year.
All right, let's turn to the USC offense. But talking about the USC offense, you can't necessarily divorce that topic from the USC defense, because I'm sure the hope is for Lindsey Gottlieb and Beth Burns against a high-end opponent on the road, get offense from our defense. So, like, in terms of unearthing those extra sources of production on offense, to get enough offense for a win, like, what do you see as like a key avenue where USC needs to either just be really good generally or needs to be better than it was against New Mexico State? Where does USC get that extra injection of offense to get over the top and win this game?
Well, again, you have to remember Jazzy Davidson and Kennedy Smith didn't have good shooting performances, so I think that's going to change a lot of things. If Jazzy Davidson, gets her nerves under control and she can come out and just be herself and play, I think you're going to see a whole different offense. As far as the defense is concerned, North Carolina State, again, they've played an exhibition game and they've played against Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't play defense, so SC will be the first team that they've played against where they're going to see a defense that's good, especially around the guard core. So I think that's going to affect North Carolina State. I like, again, if we can get their post in foul trouble and have them sitting on the bench, that's an advantage to us. How we do that is offensively, we're attacking. We're attacking downhill all the time to get their post in trouble because they have no post coming off the bench that can replace Trigger or Camille Pierre. If either one of them go to the bench, it's to our advantage.
Yeah, so you make the excellent point that, just Jazzy and Kennedy having normal shooting days. I mean, great shooting days would be wonderful, but just moving back to normal would be a big plus for USC. So we've talked a little bit about offense, talked a little bit about defense. Now let's talk about USC players whom you feel are central to this game. And most people are going to look at, hey, when you go on the road, your stars need to be stars. Jazzy, Kennedy leading the charge. But like, you've been really high on Kara Dunn, and one obvious point to make about Kara Dunn from Georgia Tech. So she knows North Carolina State really well.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's been providing a lot of inside intel. So she figures to be an important part of this puzzle, finding a way to win against NC State.
She played well against it too.
Any other, you can say more about Dunn, but also any other players you're looking at as saying we need a little bit from her in a particular matchup or in a particular situation to help win this game.
Well, I want to see what London Jones does. I'm sure when London Jones comes in the game, Zamira Jones is going to be defending her, and that's a freshman. So I want to see that matchup. And I think if London Jones can do what she did against New Mexico, we'll be in a good spot. I'm also anxious to see how Diana Mendez comes out and plays in this game because she had a good game against New Mexico State. And I think if she continues to play well, she'll earn herself more time. I think that's going to be interesting because she can play inside and out. And though that's an advantage to us, if she can play inside and out like she did against New Mexico, it should be good. Do you have a bug? there.
There were some squirrels coming at me, and I looked them in the eye, and they ran back. Life in Colorado, baby. All right, so uh, we in a game preview with CC Clay, we always want to get statistical benchmarks, one or two statistical targets, where if USC's hitting the target, Trojans are in good shape. If USC falls well short of the target, it's going to be a difficult uphill climb. So CC, your stat board, your appreciation for which numbers really matter and which numbers are empty calories. You have a really good knack for being able to sift what matters from what doesn't. What are your statistical benchmarks for USC? At least one or two for this game against North Carolina State.
I think they're going to have to hold if they're going to go this route. I think they need to hold Camille Pierre to below her regular shooting average and below her point average in order to win this game. If Camille Pierre comes in and they don't hold Trigger as well, it's going to be tough for USC. They have to hold. Their front court has to play well by committee in controlling the paint. Defensively, I want to see how they're gonna get steals. Are they gonna be able to get steals? That's what they're known for. How are they gonna get deflections? How are they gonna defend? Because they're a good defensive team. Jazzy's a good defensive player. Kennedy's a good defensive player. Malia's a good defensive player. So how is our guard core going to defend against their guards they have some quick guards? Their free throw percentage, they have to be better than 67%. And they have to get to the line. If they can get to the line against North Carolina State and hit their free throws, then we have a chance.
I want to just hit on one more thing, just because your remarks brought this up. How easy or difficult is it to double team post players? Because obviously, you've mentioned that the central defensive challenge for USC in this game, containing North Carolina State's seasoned post players with a younger Trojan front court. So it invites the point that, USC's guards are going to be able to make timely double teams, interventions, to get some steals, to bother NC State's front court players. Talk to our audience just a little bit about double teaming within a zone versus double teaming within man-to-man concepts, and maybe what viewers and TV viewers can expect on Sunday when they watch this game against NC State.
Well, zone defenses are all about shifting into position. So it's all about shifting. It's not so much doubling, it's about shifting in position. So if you have a post on the opposite side, then that person on the opposite side of the zone is always going to shift in. So that double will automatically be there. When you're playing man to man, it doesn't work that way. Usually when you're playing man to man and you're doubling, you're really coming off your player to come down to help. In a zone, you're in positions. It's a zone. You're in a certain zone, in a part of a basketball court. So, I think with this, if they're going to play zone, that paint is going to be protected, whether it be by, they play a four guard offense. So who's going to be down low? It's either going to be Kennedy or Jazzy, or it could be Kara, because, that's the one thing about this team. Their guards are like guard forwards. They're like point forwards, right? They can play multiple positions. So, that's the one good thing about this team. I wasn't paying attention when they were zoning. I need to go back and watch the game to see who was playing down low, but I think it was Kara Dunn, and that's why she was able to get rebounds defensively. But I'm not sure. I don't remember. So forgive me for that.
But nevertheless, like Kara Dunn, she knows NC State from having played at Georgia Tech. I have to think Kara Dunn needs a big game for USC to win. If she doesn't play a really strong game, it's hard for me personally to see USC getting this win. All right, anything else we haven't mentioned? And just tell our viewers what you have going on at your USC Women's Basketball Media Lab, Substack, anything else that you're doing.
I'm just excited for this game. I mean, it's a game where there's no pressure, in my opinion, because North Carolina State is ranked 8th. USC is ranked 18th, so it's expected that North Carolina State should win this game. And if North Carolina wins this game, there shouldn't be any type of talk because of where the rankings show. And people will say, okay, then they got it right. North Carolina State should be ranked number 9 and USC should be ranked 18th. Now, if USC comes out and pulls an upset, then we can talk about it and say, look, we told you guys are, let me pull out my receipts, either way. So I'm excited to see how the front court comes together and plays as a committee, against their front court, and how we balance that with our guards, because we're going to need strong play from our guards to balance what they do offensively through their front court. And again, our depth. Like, I'm looking at the stats right here for North Carolina State. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that scored in the Tennessee game, and the fifth person was Cadence Samuels. She's a transfer from Connecticut, and she scored 4 points. Well, she's averaging 4 points right now. So they have 5 players that they have 4 players that average double figures, and 1 player that averages single digits, and nobody else on that team is averaging anything. They're at zeros. So they have no bench. So if we can just outplay them in that way, and that's intriguing to me, because Tennessee, they played 13 players and they lost, but they lost because they played no defense, And then when you go cold offensively and don't play defense, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. So that's how Tennessee lost to North Carolina State.
And I would just briefly mention, Cece, before you tell our viewers, what you have going on at your USC Women's Basketball Media Lab. I would just say Tennessee led this game early. Tennessee had a 10-point lead in the first half. And yet, so you'd think that a Tennessee team that's playing 13 players, that's going to be the team that wears down the opponent. But no, NC State reeled in Tennessee, the team that was playing all those bodies. So USC is going to obviously try to create a very different dynamic in this game.
And here, I will remind people too that whenever North Carolina State had the ability to slow down and run their half court offense, that's when they were effective. So, and they were able to pick and choose when they got out. So when they had an opening and they were able to play transition ball, they were successful. But they are more successful running their half court offense because they want to go into Camille Pierre and trigger. That's their game. So if we can take them out of that, we'll be fine. We don't want them to play at that pace where they're setting up their offense all the time. We want to get them flustered, and we want to defensively, especially with the guards, put pressure on the guards so they can't get the ball into the post. Those are the keys,
And you know what? USC did not score a ton of transition points against New Mexico State. So you'd think, get out and run off turnovers like that. That right there is like the ideal for Lindsey Gottlieb and Beth Burns.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how North Carolina State plays transition defense. I think I'm going to go back and watch that game again just to see how they were, because Tennessee was up and down the court all the time, and it was never running offense. It was almost like you're outdoors playing pickup ball. That's what the game reminded me of. Or you're at the gym, LA Fitness playing pickup ball. It was just run and gun, or even a fast up-tempo AAU game where recruits are trying to look impressive in front of the coaches. You know what I mean? It's like, who's going to shoot the ball here this time? Who's going to shoot the ball this time? There was no continuity. Passes were all over the place. It was just crazy. So I'm interested to see. And NC State fell into that trap sometimes, but when they didn't, and they were able to slow down their offense and run it effectively into Camille Pierre and trigger, they were successful. So it's going to be interesting to see what USC does to stop that. And I think you're going to see them play zone to help that situation out.
Any last words, Cece?
No, I'm excited. I hope everybody tunes in Sunday to see how our team, coming out for the second game, how they're going to react to the pressure of North Carolina State, and how our front court is going to react to the greatness of Camille Pierre. That's what I'm interested in, and a 6'6" center who can play a little bit. So I'm interested to see how we handle that as a team.
This is going to require so much creativity from the USC coaching staff, but if a coaching staff has shown that it can be creative, that it can be adaptable, that it can be flexible, it's this staff. USC versus North Carolina State, Sunday afternoon, national television. Who needs the NFL? USC versus NC State. It's going to be a showcase game, top 20 matchup.
12 o'clock.
Yep, and so Cece and I are going to be watching intently. We'll have a post-game podcast for you. Can't wait as USC plays its first marquee game leading up to other marquee games. South Carolina, UConn, a
Man,
ferocious non-conference schedule. So
crazy.
the fun is starting, and Cece Clay and
Yeah.
I are going to have you covered here on the Trojans Wire podcast. So for Cece Clay, this is Matt. Go Trojans, fight on. We'll see what happens against NC State, and we will see you when you do our post-game show on USC's first big game of the season. We'll see you next time.
12 o'clock Sunday, ESPN. Be there. Fight on.